afternoon. I am Jan Lindsay, and I am happy to be making for you today in my kitchen my award-winning carrot souffle recipe.
Hi, I'm Angela Assaf, a lifestyle editor of the Crescent-News, and I'll be assisting Jan in making her carrot souffle. Let's get started.
I have carrots peeled because that is the biggest part of making the carrot souffle that takes the most time. So this recipe calls for 2 cups of cooked carrots, which are 8 to 10 raw carrots. I have cut up about probably 10 to 12 because there are a couple really small carrots. So I started with a carrot like this, and I peeled and washed the carrots and then used my cutting board. Whoops. I used my cutting board so that it would be quicker to put them in my boiling water. And right before you came, I put my water on to boil, and it appears that it's to that point or pretty close. I have, it doesn't give an amount, but just so it covers the carrots, we have boiling water there with approximately a teaspoon of salt, depending on how salty you like things, and our family chooses not to use a lot of salt, so I just have a little bit of salt in my boiling water. So we're going to put, the water is boiling in the bottom, there are bubbles, so this is our about 2 cups of cooked or ready to cook carrots that have been washed and peeled and sliced. So those are going into our boiling water. And this is the part where you need to be patient because it probably will take 15 to 20 minutes until they're tender. I did learn from my sister-in-law when my daughter visited recently that sometimes she uses the mini carrots. That certainly would be easier to make it because you wouldn't have to peel the carrots and cut them. So I think you could, but I sometimes think the flavor is a little different from the mini carrots that the ready-to-eat carrots versus the. Yeah, I think this is a truer carrot texture and carrot flavor. So even though it's a little more work, I prefer to use the full carrots. But if you want to try that to save time and you're happy with the taste, certainly it's a carrot of a different kind. So you can try that. When I beat my eggs, actually, I'm going to use a hand beater, although I do have a electric beater, little one, that's 26 years old, and I'm afraid soon going to die, but it's a favorite of mine that I got as a wedding shower gift. But being that I sit still quite a bit at work, I look for ways for a little bit, I'm kind of odd like that, activity in the kitchen, and I know some things I watch, they say, sometimes we've gotten so used to electronic devices that sometimes it's good to use some muscles or something. So when I can, and for this process for beating 3 eggs, I thought it's pretty easy to beat 3 eggs with a hand beater. So we're going to use a hand beater, plus maybe it's quieter, I don't know. So beat eggs and sugar together and add carrots. So we can go ahead and get that part ready. It'll be the eggs and the sugar. We'll get that mixture ready so that when we do get the carrots cooked and through the blender, then we'll have this mixture to put together. So, Angela, would you like to, because I know, I hope I understand there, would you like to break those eggs? Sure. So we're going to put, I'm just double checking my recipe to make sure I'm doing this correctly. It says 3 eggs on here, and I'm making the single recipe. So I'll put 3 eggs in there. I have a disposal so you can put the shells here, or I won't dump them down here. And another thing, boy, I'm showing my age. I've never encountered this in my 40 years of cooking probably, but I remember Grandma teaching me that I'm old enough that I learned you're supposed to break eggs somewhere else and then dump them in, because I imagine on the farm or somewhere you could have a bad egg, but in all my years of cooking, haven't found that yet, so I'm probably not exactly heeding Grandma's advice. So we have 3 eggs, and beat eggs and sugar together. And sugar, it says 1 cup. In parentheses, I have used less for competition purposes. I think I'm pretty close to the 1 cup, but it can be quite sweet. So depending on if you make this recipe and you try it and you think it's too sweet, you could cut back on the sugar. So we have the 3 eggs in here and about a cup of sugar that I'm going to mix together, beat together. Scraper out, but so as you can imagine, for this recipe, it's different than a typical boiled or cooked carrot dish. This is part of what's going to give you the sweet and flavor, is the fact that we have 3 eggs and a cup of sugar in here. So I'm going to get a little spatula out, and we will add this later to the carrot mixture, but we have that ready to go that way. The other part, I think, is where the carrots sound like they're getting close, but the other part, kind of giving it the souffle flavor, Angela, is that flour and baking powder and cinnamon and milk mixture. So it says dissolve flour, baking powder, cinnamon in milk and add to carrot mixture. So we're going to get that ready so it's going to be quicker to put it together when we have our carrots done. I need a cup of milk, and I have measured out the flour and the baking soda and the cinnamon together in a container over here. But I will have to measure the milk since it's in my refrigerator, so we'll get that part ready. I'll thank my home ec teacher for that. It looks pretty close. I don't know how exacting I have to be, but that goes back to probably 8th grade home ec a lot of years ago, and my mom taught me that. But when you measure liquid, you're supposed to kind of look eye level, and I might be slightly over with the bubbles, but I'm satisfied for this recipe. It's close enough. So, and another trick that I learned, it's amazing what you learn from your mother and your mother-in-law and your grandmother if you spend time with them in the kitchen, is to make this smoother. I'm going to actually dissolve this by putting the dry ingredients on top of the milk in here, and this is just a Tupperware dish. You could use anything, but earlier in my cooking career I would have just mixed it up, but to make it smoother I have found that if you shake it up for something like this or for gravies, you get a much smoother texture, and it makes my souffle creamier because there aren't lumps of flour or baking powder in that, and I don't want that. So here's our cup of milk.
That's a great idea.
So I guess what I would say for cooking that it makes it so much fun for me and enjoyable is that fact that I've learned a lot from family members that mean a lot to me. So I hope someday hope my daughters are learning something from me, and even my son. And I look forward to many years in the future, hopefully sharing some tips with grandchildren in the future, because that's just a great oral tradition to share with your family. Do you mind putting that in, Angela, please, since I'm... You want a spoon? I guess I can give you a spoon. It's might be easier to, sorry.
So I just shake?
Yep, just make sure your lid's on tight, because you don't,
Right.
you want an apron? And my gravy recipes at Thanksgiving improved greatly. From the first year probably wasn't so good. I'm sure the first couple Thanksgiving it was lumpy, but I use this with my base for my gravy at Thanksgiving to make it smoother, this shaking process. So I recommend that if you didn't know that. My mother-in-law actually taught me that. So we have this ready. Thanks. And we're going to add this cinnamon milk, baking powder, flour mixture to the carrot mixture. So we're now patiently waiting on our carrots to get tender. This is the hardest part of the recipe, is just, I guess, waiting for the carrots to cook. So it looks like these are breaking apart pretty nicely. So this may take 2 of us. I have a bigger pan. I also have a lid for that. I'm going to try this. This seemed to work the other day. I can do it without. Hopefully I can get the juice out, but not the carrots is my goal. And I feel like if I was my grandmother, hardly anything went to waste. I guess if there was something I could do with the this carrot water, I would, but I don't know what I can do with it. So we're gonna just dump this water out. Just about half of those, or there's some flux. Is that on tight? I should have checked that before. But
Always check that first.
yeah, I should have. Go through the blender. Yeah, so really this consistency, it does remind me of things you would feed your younger child, or I suppose an older adult, that if you had teeth problems. I mean, it's very texture friendly and easy to eat because it is smooth. I would not have given my young child carrot souffle probably, because it would be too sweet, but you can blend up carrots like this, I guess, if you want to save on baby food. We used to blend some of our own food for our toddlers, I guess, instead of buying all prepared baby food. That's the fun. If you like a recipe and you make it more than once, then, you know, make note on your recipe, or else remember what you liked or didn't like. If it's too sweet, you can always cut back on the sugar. My family teases me. I typically tend to cut back on the sugar, and oftentimes on different desserts or things, I cut back on the margarine or the butter. Just, I don't know why, maybe to save calories or make it a little healthier. But this is such a clean spatula. This is our flour, baking powder, cinnamon in milk, and add to the carrot mixture. So it's been shaken, but to keep it smooth, we'll do that again. Oops. Hopefully you can see it does look pretty smooth coming out, I hope. Lumps in the flour or the mixture. We have everything mixed together, the 3 parts, so we're going to pour that in here. It might be kind of full, we may have to... I like these bowls with the lips on them. That makes it easier to pour out.
I feel like I might have got some chunks in there.
It smells good. You can smell the carrots with a little bit of the egg and sugar in it. That's awesome. Good. And then I just take just for smoothness, that looks awesome, really good. I'm just going to make sure on the top, because I see a little bit of yellow from our eggs, just smooth it out. It's really a different consistency. It's almost kind of like maybe a cake batter. Okay, well, Angela and I will show you that. There's our finished product before we put it in the oven. And notice there's no nuts on it or pecans. The first hour you bake without the nuts. So we'll put it in that way. And then if you choose to add the pecans or walnuts, you put that in the last half hour of the baking. We're ready for the oven? Yeah? Yay. So our oven is preheated again, 350 or close, depending on your oven. And I'll put that in the center. And we will set our timer for an hour because I'll check it for doneness as well as decide if I want to put nuts on after that time period. So first hour is without the nuts. Why? Hopefully it'll taste fine, but day to day, who knows? Different weather conditions, humidities, and different things affect your cooking. So I'm not sure what I did differently, but I'm going to make sure it's done. I mean, it looks fine. It just has some cracks on the surface. But okay, you asked how I can tell, and I just washed my hands, but it kind of similar to a cake in nature. It should lightly to the touch bounce back, which it does, and I put my cake tester in and it comes out clean. So that should indicate that the carrots are done. So who wants pecans? Okay. And hopefully, be careful. You can burn your mouth on this. Actually, my family, when I did my practice one before the competition, I think a couple of my family members did burn their mouths. They were excited about it. It is very hot, and it holds its heat for a little bit, so I will get you something to drink. You want pecans or no pecans?
Pecans.
Okay. Here we have our finished carrot souffle that's hot out of the oven, so I'm going to gladly dish some up for Angela here. And you want the pecans?
I'm trying with the pecans.
Pecans, okay. The pecans are on the edge, so just check with your guests which serving they prefer if you're dish serving them. It is very hot, so I have water for Angela, but just be careful you don't burn your mouth. You might want to spread it out before you eat it.
That's wonderful. That's very good.
Thank you. It would go great with meat, but sorry I don't have any turkey or ham here, but typically, yeah, it's a nice mix with some other things on your plate.
Sweet and fluffy, and I love the nuts for texture. Very nice.
I'm glad you like them. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. To me, that's the best part of cooking. I enjoy eating, but I find great joy in making other people that I love happy. And we have great conversation around the dinner table, so that's part of my joy of cooking, I think, is the family time after that.
Well, thank you, Jan, for sharing with us how to make this dish and then also about your family. And we thank all of the Crescent News entrants this year in the recipe contest. Thank you.